Culture Uncut. This is Culture Uncut. This is Culture Uncut. I am your host, Jason Spears, and Colt fans, we've got a lot to talk about.
This is Culture Uncut. I'm your host, Jason Spears, and another day, another video. Some news, Colts news today, as they re-sign Danny Pinter to a one-year deal and also add Khalil Herbert to the running back fold for 1 year. This is definitely going to be a much shorter video, but I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on the moves and, you know, the obvious news that's come out that Trey Hendrickson, that Cincinnati is seeking a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson. First of all, the Pinter move, you know, it's fine. You know, French and Pinter, I don't know who you like better. I don't know if signing both was needed because I don't know if either one of them is viable at guard. But I do like Pinter. I think he's a decent fill-in at center, backup center, and same thing I said for French. But I'm not sure how you know much they will really help at guard. I think guard is the position, right guard especially, is a position of concern, and also just the depth of that position. Because I'm guessing the thought is right now they're going to move Concalves to guard, and they're probably going to draft a guard and then have Freeland be the swing tackle. Hopefully he'll take a jump and be able to perform a little better as that guy. So I have no problem with it. It's short term. It's 1 year, and you know I don't know the money on either one of them, but I do think that you know it's competition. It's going to add to the effort level and probably the intensity of practices, because no one's going to be I don't think French or Pinter is guaranteed a spot on the roster. So I think, you know, one of them could really come to the forefront, because I don't know. Again, I just can't see them. They're not viable at guard, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. And I don't see them keeping three centers. So I think, you know, they're just doing their due diligence and allowing the competition to kind of play out behind Bortolini, if Bortolini wins the job, which I expect him to. So, you know, offensive line, I think they're definitely going to take a guard at some point in the draft. And they may take a tackle, because after next year, Braden will be gone. And if there's a guy that they really like, you just never know. Maybe you play him at guard for a year, move him to tackle. I don't know what you do. But their offensive line needs to be improved. They've lost two very good players, and they need to improve via the draft. I think they're probably done free agency-wise, I would think, or maybe they sign a depth guard for cheap. But I think the next moves that'll really impact the team will probably be coming during the draft. So that's how I feel about the Pinter French signings. As far as Khalil Herbert goes, I actually really liked him coming out of Virginia Tech, and I thought he really flashed his first 3 years in Chicago. I thought he was good in the run game. He's patient. He has good vision. He's good out of the backfield as far as catching the ball. I'm not sure how good he is in pass pro, because I haven't watched a ton of tape specific to that. And when I've watched him, you know, it's really just been TV copy. So it's really just what you see via, you know, what you see on TV. So, but I like the pickup. It's a 1 year deal. It allows, and you still got Goodson. It allows them to kind of maybe be patient and take a running back later in the draft, as opposed to attacking it. And if Herbert doesn't work out in the 1 year, then you attack it next year, right? But you know, I think you'll see them take a running back later in the draft to compete with Goodson for the third, and Hall. They still have Hall to compete probably for the third running back spot, and I think that's good because I think a 1-2 punch of Taylor and Herbert is solid, and then you've got Goodson as a really, well, not really great, but a solid third down or third back or whatever to compete with Hall and whoever they draft. So, I mean, it's not he's not the greatest backup running back, but I think he's solid. He's certainly, capable in both the run and pass game. My only question about him is he serviceable in the in the pass pro part of his game, because Trey Sermon was not good at a lot of things. He ran like he was in mud. He did not really catch the ball out of the backfield, but the one thing he was dominant at was pass pro. He did an outstanding job protecting the quarterback. So while I'm not going to miss watching him struggle to get like 1-2 yards when there's wide open holes, I am going to miss the fact that when he was in the game, you knew that he was going to pick up the free blitzer or whoever got loose and take care of that. So that's my only concern, and that's only because I'll admittedly say that I have not watched any tape specific to the pass pro stuff. His college tape, he was solid. He wasn't great, but I expect he's probably improved. But you never know, man. You just never know. He hasn't gotten consistent really playing time the last year or so. I mean, in Chicago last year, he was an afterthought. They basically went to Swift and Roschon Johnson, and Herbert really didn't play that much. I think he did actually get some carries in the game they played against us, and I don't think he played great, but yeah, I mean, if you go back and watch Chicago games from like his first 3 years, he was solid. I think he was above 4.2 or 4.3 yards every year. Like, I know he had like a 4.8 year per carry, and I think a 4.3 year per carry, and then he had 1 over 5. So I mean, those are good numbers. You're not going to have it's not going to be like a drop off like it was between going from Taylor to Sermon, because there's a lot of natural ability in Herbert. I mean, like I said, he's got good vision, good patience. He's very similar in that way to Jonathan Taylor. Now, he doesn't have that like breakaway home run speed. I think he's a 4.49, 4.5 guy. He's got enough, but if you open holes for this kid, he will get you 4, 5, 6 yards and make some plays. So I like the signing. It takes the pressure off of Goodson and Hall, and really the whole staff, in terms of having to get like the second guy in the draft. Now they can kind of get a guy later and maybe take a traitsy guy that maybe hasn't produced a lot and then see if they can develop him. And there's a lot of great backs in this draft. There's diamonds in the rough. There always are, especially at that position. So I think you'll see them take a back later in the draft, definitely a day 3 pick, and this allows them to do that. So for all those reasons, I think this is a solid signing. Again, I like the process. He's not just bringing every Colt back. In fact, he let probably the 2 most prominent or 3 most prominent Colt guys go. I'm not a big fan of letting Fries go, because I think he's going to be an elite guard in this league. But Kelly and Dio, as much as I love Dio, the price tag was just too much, and Kelly, it was just time. So, look, I've been as harsh on Chris Ballard, and deservedly so, as anybody has been, but I like his process this offseason. He clearly had a plan. He had players that he wanted to go after, and he has gone after those players. I haven't agreed, Daniel Jones, with every one of them, but I agree with the process. So, and my biggest question going into all of this was, would he be inflexible and just continue to do what he's done in the past, which is, not go outside the organization? And he's done that. He went out right on the first day and got 2 guys from winning organizations, and I think that's going to help a lot. I think the Herbert move is a solid one. I think bringing back depth for the O-line is solid. The only thing, how I feel about the Daniel Jones thing, and it's more about the price. So as far as Trey goes, They're still talking. Like I said, the longer it goes on, the less likely I think something's going to happen because the Bengals are hell bent on a first round pick, and that is just not going to happen with the Colts. The Colts might go to a second conditionally if he meets certain things, but the Colts are like at a third round pick and a player. So from what I've heard, and Cincinnati is not. That's not going to be enough unless that player's like Quentin Nelson, and that's not going to happen. So actually, that wouldn't happen either way because they wouldn't take the contract that Quentin Nelson has. But they're still talking, and all I can tell you is Chris Ballard is trying. He is really trying, and you can see it. He's attacking that. If they don't get Hendrickson, I think there's a chance they take an edge at 14, depending on who's there. If I like Pierce a lot out of Tennessee, his production, that's a guy I would certainly look at 14. Obviously, Starks is another guy if he's there. Warren's the guy everybody talks about. So, or maybe they trade back. I don't know, but if worst case scenario we don't get Hendrickson, I still think we'll get a solid edge in this draft to replace Dio and hopefully grow into a starting pair with Latu and whoever we take. So they're still talking to him, but again, to make this thing happen, the Bengals have to come off that first round because I don't Ryan Grigson isn't around. He's not a GM, so I don't see anyone giving. If he was a younger player, I could see it, but he's at 30. He will be 31. I don't see a team giving him any team giving him a first round pick, even if it's a back end first round pick, because he's going to want an extension, and the extension into the 30s is a high risk move. I do believe he's still going to play great football for the next 2 or 3 years, but it's a risk, and it's not a good risk to take, especially if you're in the Colts position, because you're not exactly on the cusp of winning a championship. Now, don't get it twisted. I still want this guy. I would gladly give them a third and Quiddy or a third and Juju or whatever, or maybe even a conditional second, okay? That's as far as I go. And again, if they don't pull this off, I'm not going to be pissed at Chris Ballard because I know he's trying, and that's all you can do. You cannot make a team take, your deal. They have the choice to just say screw it and not take it and take someone else's deal, or just what I think is most likely to happen now at this point, now that it's kind of out there that they want a first round pick and they're not budging from that, is probably him going back to Cincinnati, which is going to set up a major problem because they have to sign Chase and they have to sign Higgins. And you would think that they would want some level of compensation for Hendrickson and get that contract off of their books so that they can go get, Jamar Chase is 1-2. He's either 1 or 2 as far as wide receivers go. He's the best in the AFC. He's Joe Burrow's favorite receiver, and Higgins too. So it's the Bengals. They're cheap. I don't know what they're going to do. They might come off the first thing. Because if it was me, and it's not me, but I had to give, it's like, you want to get it's like having Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne, and you got to get them both back. Would I trade a 31-year-old Dwight Freeney or a 31-year-old Robert Mathis to try to keep those guys for Peyton Manning? I probably would. Because you're talking about keeping your quarterback happy, and this is just a hypothetical. None of this ever happened, obviously. But hypothetically, if it had happened, and you have prime Marv, prime Reggie, an elite offense, and you already have an elite edge rusher, but he's going to cost a shit ton, and he's 30 years old. I'm getting something. As Denzel said, I'm leaving here with something. You can take the last year of this $15 million deal and give me, a third round pick and a player, and then we're going to pay our guys. Like, then, we're going to pay Chase. We're going to pay Higgins. We're going to, that's what I would do. But Mike Brown does things that don't make any sense, and he's been there. He's been there since Paul Brown was alive, who's like the godfather of football. I think he passed in like 84, Paul Brown, one of the greatest coaches of all time. But Mike Brown's his son, and he's completely different, and I still don't think he really knows how to run a football team, and he's been the owner since, I think, 84. So we'll see what happens, guys. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think the longer it goes on. But again, it's like Adam Schefter said. I saw Schefter talking to McAfee, and he said, look, these things change fast. So all it takes is like somebody getting in Mike Brown's ear and saying, look, we're going to end up getting nothing but a pick for this guy. One pick. Would you rather have that, like a fourth round pick, or would you rather have, a third that could be a second, or a third with a actually decent player that was a first round pick that you might be able to re-sign to a much cheaper deal and a younger player in Kwity Paye to play the same position? Like, it doesn't make sense in my mind what Mike Brown's doing. So maybe somebody gets in his ear and explains it to him. But again, as much as Trey might want to go to the Colts, and he does, he wants to come here. It's not up to him. It's up to Mike Brown, because he's gonna yay or nay whatever deal that the Colts come up with Hendrickson. They gave the permission, but that doesn't guarantee anything. It just guarantees that Mike Brown will listen to the offer and then say no to it. So again, they're still talking, and they will continue to try, but I'm telling you, and I agree with Chris Ballard, you do not give this guy a first-round pick, and I would not give him a second-round pick. I would go third, and maybe a conditional second in 2026, but that's it. Other than that, I'm giving him 2025 third with Kwity Paye, or 2025 third with Juju Brents. It's not going any further than that with me, if I'm the owner. And I love Trey Hendrickson, and I think he would be a beast in this defense. But you have to think not only micro, but macro, and you have to be smart. And I just think, I don't know what Mike Brown's doing, because the most important pieces to his team, honestly, are Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. If somehow they lose Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow is not going to be happy, and he's going to want out of Cincinnati. Then you got a much bigger problem. So it's all like a snowball. You see how these things work. They start off slow, and then they build steam, and then you got a major friggin' problem. So, and as far, one last thing before I go, and I said this is going to be short, and I'm already 17 minutes in, so I apologize. Somebody mentioned to me about the McAfee comments about Richardson. Had I heard anything? Look, McAfee is an entertainer. He loves the Colts. I'm sure he has heard things. I have heard things. I haven't heard the missing treatments, lateness thing. I hadn't heard that. I had heard that his work ethic was not very good. Now, again, and I talked about this before, when you're talking about a 22-year-old kid, yes, they're professional. They're being paid. But they're the best. They're the best in their high school, best in college, number 4 pick. They have to learn how to work like an NFL player. And to me, yes, part of that is on Anthony Richardson, right? But it's also part on the organization and the players around him to say, hey, this isn't good enough. You have to work harder. You need to be in the film room more. You need to be in here early, because you're the face of this organization right now. You need to be the guy that guys look to as a leader, and you're not doing those things. That stuff, I believe, happened, but I think that was more not an indictment, but more a reflection of his age and immaturity than it was of him being lazy. I think he went into this thinking it was going to be like Florida, and you're going to have the same type of, have to have the same type of work ethic, and it's just not the same. You have to raise your game from high school to college, and you have to raise it even more from college to pro because everybody's working. Everybody's working. And so there's some grain of truth to what I think McAfee's saying. I don't think all of what he said is true, as far as just like making it seem like he's a lazy guy and late all the time. And I have not heard that. I have heard that his work ethic wasn't great, but again, that is something you either are born with or have to learn, and it can be learned. I've seen players learn how to work harder. Like a guy I remember drafted by Denver. What was his name? Tommy Maddox. Drafted by Denver, didn't take it seriously, got cut. He was a first-round pick, I think, or a second-round pick. Ended up going to Pittsburgh and like going to the playoffs and being a playoff-level quarterback. I think of a guy like that. It was the same thing. He didn't know how to work. He had to learn how to work. And once you start investing time and you start getting results and you start seeing the fruits of your labor pay off, then there you go. But the thing that bothers me about all these guys that talk about AR is they act like this guy's a veteran in his prime. He's a young kid that's barely 21 years old. Barely. He's 22 now, but he's closer to 21 than he is to 25. He's not anywhere near his prime. I preach this every time I talk about Anthony. Be patient. He's learning. No, not everything he's done is right. No, he hasn't played great. No, he's not a finished product. But he's learning. And you could see it in the second half of the season. He's learning. Learning builds confidence. Confidence builds character and more improved play because you're confident in what you're doing, because you're watching more film. You feel good about the play calls. You feel good about game plans. You go in with a much more confident attitude. Your teammates feed off your confidence. You see games like the Jets game and the Patriots game where they're down and they come back, yes, against bad teams, but NFL teams nonetheless. That was growth. And that's the type of growth that we need to see out of in year 3. I already think he's got a fire lit under him. I don't think Daniel Jones being there is going to do anything other than make him work harder. And, that's fine. That's fine. And I think, this is the year he's got to take the step, and it's all on him now. He knows what he has to do. It's been laid out to him. It's made abundantly clear to him. So we're going to find out what Anthony Richardson's all about in year 3. But I'm not giving up on him. I'm not. I believe in him. I still believe he's got all these traits. If he can just harness things and maybe make some adjustments to his mechanics and his throwing motion on short and intermediate routes, meaning maybe not the throwing motion, but more so the touch. You can't throw every ball the same. He sometimes will, he'll take like a little dump off or a little swing pass and throw it 100 miles an hour like Jacoby Brissett used to do, and you can't do that. You got to put a little touch on it to give the guy a chance to run under it and get some yak after it. So he's got a lot of things to improve on, but I still think this narrative that he doesn't work and it's all this stuff, I don't think that's necessarily true. From everything that I've heard, he's a model teammate. He just has to work harder, and a lot of young players have to learn that the hard way because they think, well, what I did in college will be good enough in the pros. And it doesn't work that way because everybody in this league is good. Doesn't matter what team you're playing; they're all talented. They might have bad records, whatever, good record. It doesn't matter. They're all talented and they're all working. So you have to do the same. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think he learned that last year, and I think you're going to see a jump this next year. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Not too much on the Colts front. They add to their depth on the O-line. I guess this bigger signing of the day was they're getting their running back number 2 in Khalil Herbert, who I like. Like I said, love his vision, love his patience. I think he'll fit right into what we do. I think it'll take a little pressure off JT. So, I think that helps the Colts team. I think they got better. I think they continue to get better. And I'm really, really happy with the process that Chris Ballard's undertaken this offseason with identifying talent and going and getting it wherever it is, not just bringing back every single Colt guy that's a free agent. That hasn't worked, and I really feel like we're a lot better now than we were when the season ended. So that's how I feel right now. But again, guys, we got to get out on the grass and see how these guys play, and then there's injuries and all that horrible stuff. So we'll see how it plays out. But I can't as critical as I've been, I've got to give credit where credit's due. He's certainly attacked everything. I wanted him to go after Hendrickson. He's doing that. I wanted him to go after Shavarius Ward. That's the first corner I wanted. He got him. Bynum was my second free safety. He got him. He got a solid backup running back in Herbert, and he's added depth to the line. And Jones was more of a, I don't like the player, but I really hated the price. But again, it's the process. And since he's going outside the Colts organization and getting these players, that's a new process, and it shows that he's flexible. So I applaud him for doing that, because I'm sure it wasn't easy, being as stubborn as he has shown he is, to do something different. And he is doing that. We'll see how it works out, but at least he's changed course and is now trying something different, which is all any of us ever wanted him to do after it was proven that his way was not working. So, guys, leave your comments. I love reading them. What are your thoughts on the Herbert pickup? What are your thoughts on bringing back Pinter and French to be the depth interior part of our offensive line? What would you go for next? What are you looking at? The last thing I'll mention, the one position I'm very concerned about, because I think linebacker will get taken care of, is we have absolutely nothing behind Grover and DeForest Buckner. I would love to see them go after Calais Campbell or Grady Jarrett on a one-year deal, because they can still play and fits in spurts. They don't have to play the whole game, but just to have guys like that and then draft a 3 technique or whatever, in the draft, whatever you got to. But the backups are not good enough. Nobody ever talks about it, but if we don't sign a free agent there, I would double dip at defensive tackle. I would take a 3 and a 1 technique in the draft. I would, because we are getting older at that position and we have got to get better there. So that's a sneaky spot, man, defensive tackle. So keep that in mind. That's a spot where you cannot be weak. We saw when we didn't have Buck and Grover, we saw how bad it can be. So you guys got to keep that position in mind too. So just leave comments. What do you think of the player acquisitions, how Chris Ballard's done so far? Positions that you think are of need, whether it's depth or starting caliber players. And yeah, man, I just want to hear your thoughts, and be sure to check them out and leave my comments. All right, so I will be back. It's day 3. See what happens tomorrow. Something's happened every day, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. I think they can officially announce everything tomorrow, so that'll be cool. But we'll see if they keep adding guys and what the plan is. But I like what they're doing so far, I will say that. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Day 3, free agency, Indianapolis Colts. This has been Culture Uncut with your guy, Jason Spears.